Now you have another chance, which is to hear from Professor David Geneviève. Yes?
Yes, it's perfect.
Oh, parfait, merci. Merci, monsieur. You are from the Montpellier Université Hôpital?
Yes.
Yeah. How do you feel to be joining us, Professor?
I'm really happy, and I'm also really sorry to be on remote site and not with you. But you know that there is a lot of individuals with genetic condition to see, and it is hard to leave the hospital for several days. And I'm really apologize for that. But happy to be with you.
Nothing to apologize for, Professor. We're happy to be with you. Thank you for joining. You can start now.
Thank you very much. So thank you, Ursula, and the DDX36 Poland Association to giving me the opportunity to talk about the genetic aspect and the clinical aspect in individuals with DDX3X. You have had a lot of information by the Professor Aizgul, and I will probably say a lot of similar things, but maybe we can try to have another point of view and to have additional information, and I hope that it will be not so much redundancy for you. So basically, what is the DDX family? It's a very large family of genes encoding proteins, and these proteins, the main role is to pick up the RNA and to avoid the RNA to have abnormal shape. So the name DDX is from one part of the protein who has a DEAD box helicase. We say dead, but usually it's not dead, it's DEAD. It's based on the amino acids and the repetition of the motif asparagine, glutamine, alanine, asparagine. And in English, all these amino acids have a short acronym, and asparagine is D, so it's why it's DEAD. So it's an helicase, and the major role, but we'll see after that there is a lot of role for these different DDX, is to unwind the RNA. We will see just after, but when the DNA is transcribed in RNA, the RNA is not just like sausages or whatever we want, or spaghetti. It's not like spaghetti, it's just something that could be dynamically associated each together or itself. So we need to avoid this. Our cells need to avoid this. And this DDX family has a role of a chaperone, a protection of this. But there is also numerous other cell processes. So basically, if we look on the left of the screen here, it's okay, it's perfect for you. Do you see the screen properly?
Yes, we see it, yes. Professor.
Great. So you have information in your DNA, in your nucleus. It's the same for each cells, and we need to do a copy of the DNA to thereafter have a translation of this information in the nucleotide part in the amino acid and protein part. So there is several steps. The first step is to make a copy of the DNA. This is the transcription. You have a pre-mRNA, meaning by that you have some exon and introns, these different parts of the genes, and only the exon will be translated in amino acids. So you have transcription, and after the RNA processing with splicing, there is an excision of the intron, and after the mRNA will go out of the nucleus and will be picked up by a lot of protein to obtain a translation, meaning by that the information in the genes will become proteins with functions. And on the right, you can see that all the DDX have a lot of function, and the major function is to participate to the transcription process, the RNA splicing process, the RNA export, because we are in the nucleus, the RNA need to go through the nuclear port complex, and to after have the translation. So these proteins are clearly involved in a lot of cellular process. And there is not no one DDX, but several DDX. And if we focus on the DDX3X genes, this gene is located on the chromosome X, and this is here a male karyotype, and this male karyotype has 1X with these genes, DDX3X, at the middle part of the short arm of the chromosome X, and the woman obviously will have two chromosome X, but here it's a man. And you can see that there is also a homologous protein quite similar, but not exactly similar, named DDX3Y. And these both genes encode different proteins with, for a part, similar kind of process, of cellular process, but not totally. This is why probably, but we are not sure of that, we need to have additional functional study. This is why probably there is some differences between male and female with the DDX3X pathogenic variation. There is some kind of compensation, or not compensation, but different effect of the DDX3Y gene. But in female, there is two DDX3X genes, and these both genes escape to X inactivation, meaning by that a woman has two X chromosome X, and one of them usually is inactivated to be sure that there is not an excess of genetic information, an excess of proteins. And there is a few genes that escape to this X inactivation, meaning by that we need to have two functional copy of DDX3X. And in women with the genetic disease, there is one copy with a modification in the DNA, leading to only one functional DDX3X. And in male, there is one DDX3X that is different, but there is the DDX3Y that is partially, probably compensate the genetic variation. Okay, so now we can focus on what are the functions of DDX3X specifically. Obviously, it's a RNA helicase, so it is the same when there is a translation, there is a participation of the DDX3X to pick up the mRNA, to avoid the mRNA to have abnormal conformation, and to go through the nuclear pore and to be translated later in this, but in the cells. But there is also a lot of other function of DDX3X. On the right, you can see that DDX3X is involved in the inflammation, probably in the infections, and etc., etc. So there is a lot of functions provided by DDX3X genes. And maybe for people that have that go on internet and to pick information, I've seen that DDX3X is also involved in cancers, but it is really important to know that there is some pathogenic variations in DDX3X that will lead to developmental disease, and others, this is not the same, that could lead to cancers. And in developmental disease, the pathogenic variation arise since the spermatozoid or ovocyte states, but for the cancers, the pathogenic variation will arise later on during the life and will be at the mosaicism states. So it's not the same cellular context, it's not exactly the same pathogenic variation. So you have here this DDX3X protein, and we can see that there is genetic variations, missense, or loss of function variant, meaning by this is truncating variation, or the splicing variation, or the frame shift variations, meaning by that the protein will be short or absent. And the missense variation, this is only a modification of one amino acid, and the protein probably will be with a different function. So truncating, there is no protein, and missense, the protein is quite different. I think it's important to understand well after what are the differences in the genotype and the phenotype features. Okay, so on the right, on the left, sorry, we can see that the missense variation are more frequently observed in the helicase part of the protein. On the right, there is some explanation or some hypothesis of what is the molecular mechanisms of DDX3X. DDX3X, there is, as you can see, a dead part of the protein, an helicase domain in the protein, and this protein is schematized here, and you can see a part of the protein, the two domains, the helicase and the dead domain, and usually they are not associated. But when this domain pick up the RNA, the single-strand RNA, with ATPase, they will be add each together, and they are able to carry and to be sure that the mRNA will not have a strange position or something not perfect for the translation. Because if you have some abnormal mRNA aspect, meaning by that some hairspin or something similar, because the mRNA is able, if there is some quite similar part of the genetic information, it is able to do a hairspin, and it will have some very severe consequences for the transcription of other genes. Okay, so you have all this information by Professor Asgood, but I will give again these informations. We know that the genetic diseases, because there is maybe two different, linked to DDX3X has been described a few years ago by Sniger and Block. Sniger Block, it's a woman, and she described for the first time pathogenic variation links to DDX3X. And she described two different situations, one with de novo variation in DDX3X in women, and this is clearly, term is not exactly the good one, but a genetic accident. There was no familial history, and a girl born like this. It's just genetic accident. It's not due to something the woman or the man in the family did or eat or drink or something like that. It's just a genetic accident. And our DNA is usually like that. It's the same DNA than before the dinosaurs. And this our DNA is systematically trying to have some different subspecies in men. And the aim of this genetic de novo variations is to ensure that if there is some climatic change or something like that, modification of our environment, we will have a part of the human population that will survive and will let to the species to survive the modification of the environment. So this is when we do spermatozoid or ovocytes, meaning by that children, there is systematically of around 100 de novo pathogenic variations compared to the DNA of the parents and the children. So this is quite usual to have de novo variation, but this de novo variation could be only in genes that are not involved in development or something like that, but sometimes, and this is totally stochastic, there is some variations in genes involved in neurodevelopment or heart formation, etc., etc. And this is totally stochastic. Okay, so de novo variation in women with DDX3X related neurodevelopmental disorders, but there is also a monogenic condition, but this one is recessive and X-linked, meaning by that only the boys are affected and the women are carrier and healthy carrier of this disease. And this is probably not the same pathogenic variation. Here, this is the manuscript, this is from the manuscript, this is the protein, and the location of the genetic variations in women, and the location in the protein of the variation in men. And this is really different. In the first, there was no no affected individual in the family. In the second one, this is clearly family with affected male and carrier female. Okay, so about the heredity, and I think it's quite important for the parents when they have children with a DDX3X girl to understand if there are a risk to have another children affected. And usually in DDX3X, it's a de novo genetic variation. There was nobody in the family, and the risk for the parents to have another affected individual with DDX3X related disorders is quite similar, slightly increased compared to the general population. Why slightly increased? Because we are not sure of that, but sometimes it exists some mosaicism or gonadal mosaicism in parents, and therefore a risk of recurrency, but it is not usually the thing. For a woman with a DDX3X pathogenic variation, the risk to have an affected children is around 50%. And we are not sure, we don't know, if they have a boy, if this boy will have, with the boy with the pathogenic variation, does this boy will have some features, or does it lethal, meaning by that there is only a healthy boy that could birth from affected women. But for now, I am not aware of that, but maybe it exists somewhere in the world. Maybe there is some affected woman with less severe phenotype that have children or not, but I'm not aware of that. For the heredity regarding the boys and the men affected in the X-linked family, usually the mother is healthy, she is a healthy carrier, but she will have a risk of the transmission of the monogenic variation to one boy out of two. And the woman, the girl's birth from the carrier woman will be either wild type, either a carrier for the next generation. Okay. Now we have discussed about what DDX3X is, what are the functions, what are the genetic variations. We can discuss about the clinical presentation. And once again, Professor Aizgul give you a lot of information. So I really apologize for the additional information or similar information, but let's go. We know that there is some differences between women with DDX3X, girls and women with DDX3X pathogenic variations, and in boy and men with DDX3X pathogenic variation. If we focus on the girls and women, we know that there is a developmental delay, and it is really hard to give a prognosis when we have a diagnosis. Usually it's a question from the parents when we give the diagnosis in the parents. They usually ask what will be the future of this baby, and this is really impossible for us to say it will be like that at each year's, etc., etc. So we know that there is a risk of X percentage to present such feature or such feature, but we are unable to say if this feature will be with the expression of the features will be extremely severe or not. What we know is that women with and girls with DDX3X pathogenic variation will have developmental delay, and this is a very huge ranking of these difficulties. There is sometimes autism spectrum disorders, approximately 80% to 60%. Language delay, you have information from Angela Morgan. So I will just stop here because she's largely more expert than me anxiety, hyperactivity, sleep disorders. 3 out of 4 have hypotonia, 1 out of 2 sleep disorders, 7 out of 10 abnormal movement, ataxia or dyskinesia, 1 out of 3 growth retardation, 1 out of 3 microcephaly, 1 out of 5 epilepsy, and 1 out of 10 precocious puberty, and obviously a lot of neuropsychological features. But once again, Professor S will give you all the information you need for that. And in boys, it seems that all the neurological impairments seems to be more severe. Okay, but when we want to understand what are the intensity of the features, we can ask to the parents. I really thank the parents for filling the GENIDA informations, and we have this information from 58 different respondents. It could be
Professeur,
yes.
il n'y a pas de ton.
You see nothing?
Pas de ton.
Ah, you have no sound? You don't hear me?
No, I'm sorry, my French is really bad. I was trying to say that we don't have time.
Okay. So I will go very quickly. We can have some information regarding the intensity of the features. We have also information regarding these features will disappear or not. This is the working issue. We can see that when you are when the children advance in age, they will walk. They will also speak. Sometimes they will not, but usually language will appear. And just to say that there is differences between the missense variation and the pathogen and the truncating variation, and missense seems to me to be more severe, with more frequently polymicrogia. We obviously have additional information, and this is end. And I just want to say that the diagnosis is not a prognosis.
Thank you for saying that. This is us thanking you. And we have a professor from Poznan, from the University of Medical Sciences here with a question.
Thank you very much for your great lecture. I have the one question, because when we check the blood in our children with DDX3X, sometimes we notice the inflammatory process like higher interleukin-6 or TNF-alpha. Could you be so kind and tell us to what specialist we could go? Because, for instance, we went to rheumatologist because the profile of blood was similar to children with juvenile arthritis disorder. And please tell me, how could you explain what can we do to make the inflammatory process smaller? Because we think that it could make something to anxiety in that children.
Okay, if I understand well, there was, I think, 2 different questions. The first is regarding the inflammation. This is correct?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So I think that inflammation is one part of the features in DDX3X. And I go really quickly, but globally, we have some knowledge regarding DDX3X, but obviously we will understand well, better the disease during the what we can do. So I think that inflammation is really part of these disorders, and maybe juvenile idiopathic arthritis too. And if inflammation is clearly responsible for arthritis, you can try also indeed antibodies that will block the TNF alpha. So you can use a blocker of TNF alpha that will usually normalize the inflammation, the inflammation in joints. And the other question was regarding the anxiety. It's correct?
Yes, because I have noticed that when that parameters went up, then the level of anxiety went also up. And there wasn't anything like flu, any disease that you know that made the inflammation, in fact, referring to test of virus or any others.
Okay, so if I understand well, the question is there is a link between inflammation and anxiety.
Yeah.
Maybe, because we know that sometimes there is neuroinflammation, but we know that also that anxiety is seems to be a frequent feature in individuals with DDX3X, mainly half of the people. So maybe if your girl is anticipated the pain of the articulation, that will raise the level of anxiety, because she is feeling that it will be painful. Maybe it's the link, and not clearly a neuroinflammation of the brain. We don't know what's happening.
So the kid is sensing what is going to happen.
Sorry?
So the kid is sensing what can happen, right?
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure of that. They are able to feel that there is some pain that will come, and we know also that children that can feel that they will experience seizures, for instance.
All right.
So they can anticipate it for sure.
Also, I want to add.
Okay, so this is Professor Efe from the Ankara hospital.
Yes.
Okay.
I want to add something. Neuroinflammation and chronic inflammation is generally common in rare genetic disorders, or also in autism spectrum disorder. It's so hard to prevent the chronic inflammation or the tending to the inflammation. However, some authorities are recommended that their consequences can be controlled by regulating the oxidative stress in body, such as strengthen the antioxidant mechanism by using an acetylcysteine or hyperbaric oxygen and etc., or vitamin D and etc. can be helpful for strengthen the antioxidant mechanism and control the long life effect of the chronic oxidative stress.
So the sound was really noisy, so I'm not really sure that I understand.
Yeah, I have a suggestion
Sorry
that
for
we
my
just
voice.
connect the two of you so that you can also discuss this topic.
Yes, I add to your. It's hard to prevent the neuroinflammation or autoimmune disorders and tendency of these genetic problems in these patients. However, we can control or regulate the consequences of these tendencies by controlling or regulating the antioxidant mechanism in body.
All right.
Okay.
Just to try to just maintain the discussion, but it will be shortly. There is some mice model for DDX3X, and they looked at the anxiety, and they demonstrated that the mice have anxiety. So maybe it could be interesting to have a link with the people who have this mice model, and to see if there is brain inflammation when there is anxiety. It will be a way to reply to the question. But for now, we don't know.
Thank you so much, Professor Genevieve.
This is Ursula, the organizer,
yes,
speaking.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, the organizers.
Thank you for being with us, and I'm really glad Alain Frenkel connected us, and we will connect you with Professor Ayşegül Efe definitely as well after the conference.
Thank you, Professor. Merci beaucoup.
Bye-bye.